In the quiet village of Brightwood, nestled at the edge of the whispering forest, a young warrior named Lyra Nightshade lives a simple life, unaware of the extraordinary destiny that awaits her. Raised by the village elder, Lyra knows little of her past, only that she was found as a baby at the foot of the ancient stone circle deep within the forest. As the chapter begins, Lyra experiences a vivid dream, one that feels more real than any she has ever had before. In the dream, she is standing in the heart of the whispering forest, surrounded by towering trees that seem to hum with ancient power. A voice calls out to her, urging her to seek the truth and reclaim her destiny. When she awakens, Lyra finds herself drawn to the forest, where she discovers an ancient artifact hidden beneath the roots of an ancient oak tree. This artifact, a small, intricately carved stone, glows with a faint blue light. As soon as Lyra touches it, she feels a surge of energy coursing through her, awakening a power she never knew she possessed. Confused and frightened, she returns to the village, only to find that strange things are beginning to happen. The village animals become restless, the winds howl with an unnatural fury, and the once clear skies darken with ominous clouds. Lyra seeks out the village elder, who reveals that the artifact she has found is the key to an ancient prophecy, one that foretells the return of the lost kingdom of Elendor. The elder tells Lyra of the kingdom's fall, the disappearance of the royal family, and the chaos that has plagued the land ever since. According to the prophecy, a chosen one would one day rise to restore balance to Elendor, and the discovery of the artifact signals that the time has come. As the chapter ends, Lyra realizes that she can no longer remain in the safety of her village. The weight of her destiny presses upon her, and she understands that her journey is just beginning. With the artifact in hand and the village elder's words echoing in her mind, she sets out into the unknown, determined to uncover the truth about Elendor and her own mysterious past. The road out of Brightwood was rough and seldom travelled, winding through the whispering forest's dense thickets and towering trees. As Lyra ventured deeper into the woods, she felt the presence of the ancient magic that coursed through the land. The artifact she carried pulsed with a soft blue light, as if responding to the energy around her, guiding her through the labyrinth of trees. With each step, Lyra's thoughts were a whirlwind. The village elder's words echoed in her mind. A chosen one to restore the lost kingdom of Elendor. Could it be true? How could a simple village girl like her be connected to such a grand destiny? But the artifact was undeniable proof, and the strange powers it awakened within her could not be ignored. As she walked, the forest began to change. The air grew thick with mist, and the once vibrant colors of the trees and foliage faded into muted shades of grey. The wind carried an eerie whisper, as if the forest itself was alive, speaking in a language only it understood. Lyra tightened her grip on her sword, a sense of unease creeping over her. Suddenly, she heard a rustling in the bushes to her left. Her heart raced as she instinctively reached for the hilt of her sword, ready to defend herself. Out of the undergrowth emerged a figure, a tall, slender man with pointed ears, dressed in the green and brown garb of the elven kind. His long silver hair cascaded down his back, and his eyes, a deep emerald green, locked onto hers with an intensity that made her breath catch in her throat. "Do not be alarmed," the elf spoke, his voice smooth and melodic. "I mean you no harm." Lyra hesitated, lowering her sword slightly, but not fully letting her guard down. "Who are you?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension in her chest. "My name is Erindor Silverleaf," the elf replied, stepping closer. "I am a guardian of the Whispering Forest, and I have been watching you, Lyra Nightshade." "Watching me? Why?" Lyra demanded, suspicion creeping into her voice. Erindor smiled faintly. "Because you are the one foretold in the ancient prophecies. The one who carries the artifact that will restore the kingdom of Elendor." Lyra's eyes widened in surprise. How do you know about the artifact? The magic of this forest is older than time itself, Erindor explained. It speaks to those who know how to listen. The artifact you carry is bound to the very essence of Elendor. When you entered the forest, the balance of magic shifted, and the trees whispered of your arrival. Lyra looked down at the glowing stone in her hand, a mixture of awe and fear swirling within her. If what you say is true, then what am I supposed to do? Erindor's expression grew serious. You must gather allies, those who will aid you in your quest to restore Elendor. The path ahead will be fraught with danger, and you cannot face it alone. As if on cue, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The mist thickened, and the whispering wind grew into a howling gale. Lyra and Erindor braced themselves as the earth shook violently, and from the shadows emerged a group of menacing creatures, dark, twisted beings with glowing red eyes and jagged claws. They moved with unnatural speed, surrounding Lyra and Erindor in a circle of malevolent intent. "Shadow spawn!" Erindor shouted, drawing his bow and notching an arrow in one fluid motion. "These creatures are drawn to the artifact's power. We must fight them off." Lyra's instincts kicked in as she drew her sword, ready to defend herself. The shadow spawn lunged at them, their claws slashing through the air with deadly precision. Lyra parried the first attack, her sword meeting the creature's claws with a clash of steel. Erindor's arrows flew through the air, striking the shadow spawn with unerring accuracy. But for every one that fell, two more took its place. The battle was fierce, the sounds of clashing weapons and snarling creatures filling the air. Lyra fought with all her strength, but the numbers of the shadow spawn seemed endless. She could feel herself growing tired, her movements slowing as the weight of the battle bore down on her. Just when it seemed that all hope was lost, a deep, resonant voice echoed through the forest. "Hold your ground!" Out of the mist charged a stout, muscular figure wielding a massive warhammer. With a mighty swing, he crushed the nearest shadow spawn, sending it flying into the trees. The new arrival fought with unmatched ferocity, each swing of his hammer felling multiple creatures at once. "Thorn Ironfist, at your service!" The dwarf shouted over the din of battle, a grin spreading across his bearded face. With Thorn's help, the tide of the battle quickly turned. The shadow spawn, realizing they were outmatched, began to retreat back into the shadows, their red eyes fading into the darkness. Within moments, the forest was still once more, the only sounds being the labored breaths of the three warriors. Lyra sheathed her sword, her heart still pounding from the adrenaline of the fight. "Thank you," she said, turning to Thorn. "You saved us." Thorn waved a hand dismissively. "No need to thank me, lass. Those shadow spawn have been a thorn in my side for too long. I was happy to smash a few." Erindor nodded in agreement. "Your timing was impeccable, Thorn, but how did you find us?" Thorn chuckled. "I have my ways. The winds of fate led me here, and it seems I arrived just in time." Lyra couldn't help but smile at the dwarf's confidence. "I'm Lyra, and this is Erindor. We're on a quest to restore the kingdom of Elendor." Thorn's expression grew serious. "Elendor, you say? Aye, I've heard the tales. A kingdom lost to time, and with it, a great treasure. If you're looking to restore it, you'll need more than just a sword and a bow." "We know," Erindor replied. "That's why we need allies, strong ones." Thorn nodded thoughtfully. "Well, you've got one in me. I've been searching for a purpose ever since my own kingdom fell. If helping you restore Elendor means putting a few more shadow spawn in the ground, then count me in." With Thorn now part of their group, Lyra felt a renewed sense of hope. The path ahead was still uncertain, but with allies like Erindor and Thorn by her side, she knew they stood a chance. As the three of them continued their journey through the whispering forest, the mist began to lift, and the sun's rays broke through the canopy, casting a warm glow on the path ahead. Lyra looked at the artifact in her hand, its blue light now pulsing with a steady rhythm. "Where to next?" Lyra asked, turning to Erindor. "We must head to the ancient city of Valoria," Erindor replied. "There, we will find Selene Moondancer, a sorceress with knowledge of the old magic. She may hold the key to unlocking the artifact's true power." With their next destination set, the trio set off, their footsteps echoing through the forest as they embarked on the next leg of their journey. Little did they know that the challenges they had faced so far were only the beginning, and that the true test of their strength, courage, and unity awaited them in the shadows of Valoria. The road to Valoria was long and treacherous, winding through mountains and valleys that had seen better days. The city, once a jewel of Elendor, now stood as a shadow of its former glory, its crumbling walls and deserted streets a testament to the kingdom's fall. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn travelled in silence for much of the journey, each lost in their thoughts as they prepared for whatever awaited them in the ancient city. The closer they got to Valoria, the more oppressive the atmosphere became. The skies grew darker, the air thicker, and the landscape more barren. It was as if the very land itself had been tainted by the kingdom's downfall. Yet, amidst the desolation, there was a certain beauty, a reminder of what Valoria once was and what it could be again. As they reached the outskirts of the city, the trio paused to take in the sight before them. The walls of Valoria, though crumbling, still stood tall, a symbol of resilience against the passage of time. Beyond the walls, the spires of ancient temples and towers rose into the sky, their surfaces worn by the elements, but still imposing. The city was a labyrinth of history, and somewhere within its depths lay the sorceress Selene Moondancer. "We've made it," Lyra said, her voice tinged with both awe and sadness. "Aye, but the real challenge begins now," Thorn replied, his eyes scanning the city with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "This place has seen much bloodshed. The spirits of the fallen may not take kindly to intruders." Erindor nodded in agreement. "Valoria is a city of secrets. We must tread carefully if we are to find Selene and avoid awakening whatever dark forces may still linger here." With that, they entered the city, passing through the gates that had long since lost their grandeur. Inside, the streets were eerily silent, the only sound being the wind that whistled through the empty alleyways. The buildings, once magnificent structures of marble and stone, were now ruins overgrown with vines and moss. It was clear that Valoria had been abandoned for centuries. Yet there was a sense that they were not entirely alone. As they moved deeper into the city, Lyra couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Shadows seemed to dance at the edge of her vision, and every now and then she thought she heard faint whispers carried on the wind. But each time she turned to look, there was nothing there. Erindor and Thorn seemed to notice it too, their hands never straying far from their weapons. "The sooner we find Selene the better," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The temple should be in the heart of the city," Erindor replied. "If Selene is still here, that's where she'll be." They pressed on, making their way through the maze of streets until they reached the city's central square. There, towering above them, was the Temple of the Moon, a once grand structure dedicated to the worship of the moon goddess. The temple's facade was adorned with intricate carvings depicting celestial scenes, though many of them had been worn away by time. The doors, heavy and imposing, were slightly ajar, as if waiting for them to enter. "This is it," Erindor said, his voice laced with reverence. "The Temple of the Moon, Selene's sanctuary." Lyra hesitated for a moment, feeling the weight of the moment. She was about to step into a place where ancient magic still thrived, where the past and present intertwined. Taking a deep breath, she pushed open the doors and led the way inside. The interior of the temple was dark, the only light coming from the faint glow of the artifact in Lyra's hand. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the walls were lined with statues of the moon goddess in various poses, each one more lifelike than the last. At the far end of the temple, a single figure stood before an altar, her back to them. "Selena!" Lyra called out, her voice echoing through the chamber. The figure turned slowly, revealing a woman of striking beauty and power. Her silver hair flowed like liquid moonlight, and her eyes, a deep shade of violet, seemed to pierce through the darkness. She was draped in robes of midnight blue, adorned with silver embroidery that shimmered in the dim light. In her hand she held a staff topped with a crescent moon, glowing softly with an ethereal light. "Welcome, Lyra Nightshade," Zelena said, her voice as smooth as silk. "I have been expecting you." Lyra exchanged a glance with Erindor and Thorn before stepping forward. "You know who I am?" "I do," Selene replied, a knowing smile playing on her lips. "The winds of fate have whispered your name to me, and the stars have foretold your arrival. You seek to restore the kingdom of Elendor, do you not?" Lyra nodded. "Yes, but I don't know how. I was told you could help me unlock the artifact's true power." Zelena's gaze shifted to the glowing stone in Lyra's hand. "The artifact you carry is a piece of Elendor's heart, a fragment of the kingdom's soul. It is a powerful relic, but its true potential can only be unleashed by one who possesses the strength of will and purity of heart." Lyra swallowed hard, the weight of Selen's words sinking in. "What do I need to do?" "First, you must understand the nature of the artifact," Selene explained, stepping closer. "It is a conduit for the magic of Elendor, a link between the physical world and the realm of the gods. To unlock its full power, you must attune yourself to the ancient magic that flows through the land." "How do I do that?" Lyra asked, feeling a mixture of excitement and trepidation. Selena smiled. "By connecting with the essence of Elendor itself. The artifact responds to the will of its bearer, but it also draws strength from the land. You must journey to the 4 sacred sites of Elendor, each one representing a different element, and perform the ritual of attunement. Only then will you be able to harness the full power of the artifact." "And where are these sacred sites?" Erindor asked, his tone curious. "They are hidden across the kingdom," Selene replied. "Each one guarded by powerful beings who will test your resolve. The first site is the Crystal Cavern, located in the heart of the Whispering Mountains. There you will attune yourself to the element of earth." Lyra nodded, determination shining in her eyes. "We'll go there first, then." "Be warned," Selene said, her expression serious. "The path ahead will not be easy. The guardians of the sacred sites are formidable, and they will not grant you their power without a fight. But if you succeed, you will gain the strength needed to restore Elendor." "We're ready," Thorn said, his voice filled with confidence. "No guardian is too tough for us." Selena's gaze softened as she looked at Lyra. "You carry a great burden, Lyra. But know this, you are not alone. The spirits of Elendor watch over you, and the power of the artifact will guide you. Trust in yourself, and you will succeed." With Selene's words echoing in their minds, Lyra, Erindor and Thorn left the temple, their next destination clear. The Crystal Cavern awaited them, and with it, the first step towards unlocking the true power of the artifact. As they made their way out of Valoria, the sense of unease that had plagued them earlier began to fade. The sky, once dark and foreboding, now showed glimpses of blue through the clouds. It was as if the city itself was acknowledging their resolve, offering a small glimmer of hope amidst the ruins. "We're getting closer," Lyra said, her voice filled with a newfound determination. "I can feel it." "Aye," Thorn agreed, a grin spreading across his face. "And I can't wait to see what these guardians have in store for us." Erindor, ever the cautious one, nodded thoughtfully. "We must remain vigilant. The guardians will not be easily defeated, and there may be other dangers lurking in the shadows. But despite his warning, Lyra felt a sense of confidence growing within her. She had come this far, and she knew that with the help of her companions, she could overcome any challenge that lay ahead. The road to the crystal cavern was long, but it was a journey she was ready to undertake. As the trio left Valoria behind, the city's ancient walls seemed to stand a little taller, as if remembering the days of old when Elendor was a thriving kingdom. The road ahead was uncertain, but Lyra knew that each step brought her closer to fulfilling her destiny. And with the artifact in her hand, glowing brighter than ever, she was ready to face whatever the future held. "We're getting close," Erindor said as they approached a narrow pass that led deeper into the mountains. "The crystal cavern lies somewhere within these peaks. We need to find the entrance." Lyra nodded, her breath visible in the cold air. "We'll need to be careful. The guardian of the cavern won't be easy to defeat." Thorn grinned, his breathless excitement visible despite the cold. "I've been looking forward to a real challenge. Let's see what this guardian is made of." The trio pressed on, moving through the narrow pass and into the heart of the mountains. The path was treacherous, lined with loose rocks that threatened to give way underfoot. The wind howled around them, carrying with it the distant echoes of ancient voices. It was as if the mountains themselves were alive, watching their every move. As they ventured deeper, the terrain became even more unforgiving. Jagged cliffs rose on either side, and the path narrowed until they were forced to walk single file. The wind grew stronger, whipping around them with a cold bite that cut through their cloaks. Despite the harsh conditions, Lyra felt a strange sense of calm. She could feel the artifact's power resonating with the land, guiding her towards their destination. "Do you hear that?" Erindor suddenly asked, his voice barely audible over the wind. Lyra strained her ears, and sure enough, she could hear it. A faint, rhythmic sound that seemed to be coming from deep within the mountains. It was unlike anything she had heard before, a deep, resonant hum that seemed to vibrate through the very ground beneath their feet. "It's the heart of the mountains," Erindor said, his voice filled with reverence. "The source of the earth's power. We're close to the cavern." They continued onward, following the sound as it grew louder and more distinct. The path began to slope downward, leading them into a narrow gorge that cut through the mountains. The walls of the gorge were steep and covered in patches of ice, and the ground was slick with frost. Yet, the trio pressed on, their determination driving them forward. At the end of the gorge, they found themselves standing before a massive stone door, carved directly into the mountainside. The door was covered in ancient runes, glowing faintly with a soft green light. The humming sound was now so loud that it reverberated through their bodies, filling them with a sense of awe and trepidation. "This is it," Lyra said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The entrance to the crystal cavern." Erindor stepped forward, studying the runes closely. "These are wards, meant to keep out intruders. The guardian must be beyond this door." Thorn drew his sword, the blade gleaming in the dim light. "Well, what are we waiting for? Let's go meet this guardian." But before they could move, the ground beneath their feet began to tremble. The humming grew louder, the runes on the door flaring with bright light. The stone door slowly began to open, revealing a dark tunnel that led deep into the mountain. "Stay alert," Erindor warned as they stepped into the tunnel. "We don't know what we'll find inside." The tunnel was narrow and dark, the walls lined with jagged crystals that glowed with an inner light. The deeper they went, the more the crystals multiplied, their light growing brighter until the tunnel was filled with a kaleidoscope of colors. The air was thick with magic, the very essence of the earth itself. After what felt like hours, the tunnel opened up into a vast cavern, the ceiling so high it was lost in shadows. The walls of the cavern were covered in massive crystals, each one glowing with a different color. At the center of the cavern stood a large stone altar, and on it lay a single crystal, glowing with a brilliant green light. "The heart of the mountain," Erindor breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. "This is the source of the earth's power." But before they could approach the altar, the ground shook violently, and a deep rumbling voice echoed through the cavern. "Who dares to enter my domain?" The voice was so powerful that it seemed to shake the very foundations of the mountain. The crystals on the walls pulsed with light, and from the shadows emerged a massive figure. The guardian was a creature of stone and crystal, towering over them with a body made entirely of the earth itself. Its eyes glowed with an inner fire, and its voice was the very voice of the mountain. "I am Gaian, guardian of the earth," the creature rumbled. "Why have you come to this sacred place?" Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. "We seek to attune ourselves to the power of the earth and unlock the true potential of the artifact." Gaian studied them for a moment, its eyes narrowing. "The power of the earth is not given lightly. You must prove yourselves worthy by facing the trials of the mountain." Thorn grinned, tightening his grip on his sword. "Bring it on." Gaian raised a massive hand, and the ground beneath them began to shift. The floor of the cavern split open, revealing a deep chasm that stretched across the room. On the other side of the chasm, another tunnel led deeper into the mountain. "The first trial is one of strength," Gaian said. "Cross the chasm if you can." Without hesitation, Thorn leaped across the chasm, landing safely on the other side. Erindor followed, using his agility to navigate the narrow ledges and avoid the crumbling rocks. Lyra hesitated for a moment, then took a deep breath and jumped. For a moment she felt as though she was suspended in mid-air, the chasm yawning beneath her. But then she landed safely beside her companions. Gaian nodded approvingly. "You have passed the first trial, but the next will test your resolve." The trio followed Gaian through the tunnel, which led them to another chamber. This one was filled with massive boulders, each one perched precariously on the edge of a cliff. A narrow path wound its way through the chamber, leading to another door on the far side. "The second trial is one of endurance," Gaian said. "Navigate the path and avoid the falling boulders." The ground shook as the boulders began to roll down the cliffs, crashing into the path with tremendous force. Thorn led the way, his reflexes allowing him to dodge the boulders with ease. Erindor followed, using his agility to weave through the obstacles. Lyra struggled to keep up, the weight of the artifact slowing her down. But she refused to give up, pushing herself to keep moving. Finally, they reached the other side, breathing heavily but unharmed. Gaian nodded again, his expression unreadable. "You have passed the second trial, but the final trial will test your heart." The final chamber was unlike any they had seen before. The walls were made entirely of crystal, reflecting their images back at them from every angle. At the center of the room was a pedestal, on which sat a small glowing crystal. "The third trial is one of will," Gaian said. "Take the crystal, if you can." Lyra stepped forward, reaching out to take the crystal. But as soon as her hand touched it, the room began to spin. The crystals on the walls pulsed with light, and suddenly Lyra was no longer in the chamber. She was back in Valoria, standing before the Temple of the Moon. But something was wrong. The city was in flames, the sky dark with smoke. The temple was crumbling, and before her stood a figure she recognized all too well. Her father, King Eldric Nightshade. "Lyra," he said, his voice filled with sorrow. "Why did you leave us?" Lyra's heart clenched with guilt and fear. "I had to, father. I had to find a way to save the kingdom." "But you failed," her father said, his image flickering like a dying flame. "The kingdom is lost, and it is all your fault." Tears welled up in Lyra's eyes. "No, I won't accept that. I can still save Elendor. I won't let the kingdom fall." The image of her father faded, and the scene shifted. Now she was in the Whispering Mountains, standing before the heart of the mountain. But instead of the green crystal, The heart was cracked and broken, its light dimming. The power of the earth is slipping away. A voice echoed in her mind. The kingdom cannot be saved. No, Lyra shouted, her voice filled with determination. I won't let that happen. I will save Elendor, no matter what it takes. The room stopped spinning, and Lyra found herself back in the crystal chamber, the glowing crystal still in her hand. She looked up to see Guyan standing before her, his expression unreadable. You have passed the final trial, he said, his voice filled with a strange mix of pride and sadness. You have proven your strength, endurance and will. The power of the earth is now yours. The crystals in the chamber began to glow with a brilliant light, their colors merging into a single radiant beam that shot up through the ceiling and out into the sky. The ground trembled, and for a moment it felt as though the entire mountain was coming to life. Lyra felt the power of the earth surge through her, filling her with a strength she had never known. The artifact in her hand pulsed with energy, and she knew that they had succeeded. They had unlocked the true potential of the artifact. Guyan stepped forward, his massive form towering over them. You have done well, but your journey is not yet over. The artifact's power will help you, but the true test lies ahead. The fate of Elendor is still in your hands. Lyra nodded, her resolve stronger than ever. We won't fail. With that, Guyan stepped aside, allowing them to pass. The trio left the cavern, the light of the crystal still shining brightly behind them. They knew that their journey was far from over, but they were ready for whatever challenges lay ahead. As they emerged from the mountains, the sun was just beginning to rise, casting a warm glow over the land. The whispering mountains stood tall behind them, their peaks touched with gold by the morning light. The wind whispered through the rocks, carrying with it the echoes of ancient voices, a reminder of the power they had unlocked and the challenges that still awaited them. But for now, they had a moment of peace, a moment to reflect on all they had accomplished. The artifact glowed in Lyra's hand, a symbol of their strength and determination. The fate of Elendor was still uncertain, but they were ready to face whatever lay ahead. And so, with renewed resolve, they set off towards their next destination, the shadow of the whispering mountains fading behind them as they continued their journey to save their king. The journey to the City of Shadows was one filled with foreboding. The landscape changed as they traveled south, the lush forests and rolling hills giving way to barren plains and twisted, gnarled trees. The air grew colder, and the sky was perpetually overcast, as though the sun itself dared not shine on this cursed land. Lyra, Elendor and Thorn moved cautiously, aware that they were entering enemy territory. The City of Shadows was a place of dark magic, a stronghold of the Shadow Lords who sought to plunge Elendor into eternal darkness. It was a city of nightmares, where the very air was thick with fear and despair. We need to be careful, Elendor warned, as they approached the outskirts of the city. The Shadow Lords will be expecting us. We can't afford to be caught off guard. Lyra nodded, her grip tightening on the artifact. We'll need to find a way into the city without being seen. Once we're inside, we can use the artifact to find the Shadow Crystal and destroy it. Thorn grinned, his eyes gleaming with excitement. Sounds like a plan. Let's show these Shadow Lords what we're made of. The trio moved stealthily through the twisted landscape, avoiding the patrols of shadowy figures that roamed the outskirts of the city. The City of Shadows loomed ahead, its black stone walls towering above them, casting long shadows across the barren land. The city was a fortress, its gates guarded by fearsome creatures of darkness, their eyes glowing with malevolent light. As they approached the walls, Lyra felt a chill run down her spine. The city was alive with dark magic, the very air pulsing with it. She could feel the power of the Shadow Crystal deep within the city, its presence a dark blot on the fabric of reality. We'll need to find a way over the walls, Erindor whispered, his eyes scanning the perimeter. "There's no way we can fight our way through the front gate." Lyra nodded, her mind racing. "There's a weak point in the wall over there," she said, pointing to a section where the stone looked old and crumbling. "We can use the artifact to break through." Thorn raised an eyebrow, impressed. "Good eye. Let's do it." They made their way to the weak point in the wall, moving silently through the shadows. Lyra held the artifact out, concentrating on the power within it. The artifact began to glow, and with a soft hum, the stones in the wall began to shift and crumble, creating an opening just large enough for them to slip through. Once inside the city, they found themselves in a narrow alley, the walls towering above them like the blackened bones of a long-dead giant. The city was a maze of dark, twisting streets, lined with buildings that seemed to lean in on themselves, their windows like empty eyes watching them. The air was thick with the stench of decay, and the only sound was the distant echo of footsteps on stone. "We need to find the central tower," Erindor said, his voice low. "That's where the shadow crystal will be. But we'll need to be careful. This city is full of traps and illusions." They moved cautiously through the streets, sticking to the shadows and avoiding the patrols of shadowy figures that roamed the city. The buildings loomed above them, their windows dark and foreboding. The streets were narrow and winding, and it was easy to lose their way in the maze of alleyways and dead ends. As they moved deeper into the city, the sense of foreboding grew stronger. The air was thick with dark magic, and the shadows seemed to move of their own accord, reaching out towards them with grasping fingers. The very ground beneath their feet felt wrong, as though they were walking on the surface of a nightmare. But Lyra kept her focus on the artifact, using its power to guide them towards their destination. She could feel the presence of the shadow crystal growing stronger, pulling them towards the heart of the city. Finally, they reached the central square, where the Tower of the Shadow Lords loomed above them. The tower was a massive structure of black stone, its walls lined with twisted gargoyles and dark runes that pulsed with a sickly green light. The air around the tower was thick with dark magic, and Lyra could feel the weight of it pressing down on her like a physical force. "We're here," Erindor said, his voice barely above a whisper. "The shadow crystal is inside that tower. We need to find a way in." Thorn nodded, his expression grim. "This is it. We're in the belly of the beast now." The entrance to the tower was guarded by two massive stone statues, their eyes glowing with a malevolent light. The statues were enchanted, their stone limbs capable of crushing intruders with ease. But Lyra was undeterred. She held the artifact out, focusing its power on the statues. The artifact glowed brightly, and the statues began to shake. With a loud crack, the stone crumbled, and the statues fell apart, their pieces tumbling to the ground. "Let's go," Lyra said, her voice steady. They entered the tower, the darkness closing in around them like a shroud. The inside of the tower was even more foreboding than the city outside. The walls were lined with dark tapestries that depicted scenes of death and despair, and the air was thick with the stench of decay. The only light came from the flickering torches that lined the walls, casting long, dancing shadows. They made their way up the winding staircase, the steps creaking underfoot. The tower was eerily silent, the only sound the echo of their footsteps. But Lyra could feel the presence of the shadow crystal growing stronger with each step, its dark power pulling them closer. Finally, they reached the top of the tower, where a massive door stood before them. The door was covered in dark runes, glowing faintly with a sickly green light. Lyra could feel the dark magic emanating from the door, a barrier meant to keep out intruders. But she wasn't going to let that stop her. She held the artifact out, focusing its power on the door. The runes flared brightly, and with a loud crack, the door shattered, revealing a dark chamber beyond. Inside the chamber, the shadow crystal hovered in the air, its dark light pulsing with a malevolent energy. The crystal was massive, its surface covered in jagged, black spikes that seemed to absorb the light around them. The air was thick with dark magic, and the very ground beneath their feet seemed to tremble with the power of the crystal. "This is it," Erindor said, his voice tense. "We need to destroy the crystal." But before they could move, a dark figure emerged from the shadows. The Shadow Lord was a tall, gaunt figure, his eyes glowing with a sickly green light. His body was covered in dark robes that billowed around him like smoke, and his voice was like the hiss of a serpent. "Use!" the Shadow Lord sneered, his voice dripping with malice. "You think you can destroy the power of the shadows? You are nothing compared to me." Lyra stepped forward, her heart pounding in her chest. "We will stop you. We will destroy the crystal and free Elendor from your darkness." The Shadow Lord laughed, a cold, mirthless sound. "You can try, but you will fail. The power of the shadows is eternal." With a wave of his hand, the Shadow Lord summoned a wave of dark energy that rushed towards them. Lyra held up the artifact, its light flaring brightly as it absorbed the dark energy, protecting them from the attack. Erindor and Thorn sprang into action, their weapons at the ready. They attacked the Shadow Lord, but he was quick, his movements like a shadow as he dodged their blows. He retaliated with dark magic, sending bolts of energy that crackled through the air. Lyra focused on the artifact, using its power to shield them from the Shadow Lord's attacks. She could feel the energy of the crystal growing stronger, feeding off the battle. They needed to end this, and fast. "Focus on the crystal," Lyra shouted. "We need to destroy it." Erindor and Thorn nodded, turning their attention to the crystal. They attacked it with everything they had, their weapons striking the crystal with powerful blows. But the crystal was strong, its dark magic protecting it from their attacks. Lyra held the artifact out, focusing all of its power on the crystal. The artifact glowed brightly, its light piercing through the darkness. The crystal shuddered, cracks appearing on its surface as the light of the artifact began to weaken its dark magic. The Shadow Lord let out a roar of anger, his form flickering like a shadow. "No! You cannot destroy the power of the shadows." But it was too late. The artifact's light grew brighter, and with a final burst of energy, the crystal shattered, its dark magic dissipating into the air. The Shadow Lord let out a scream of rage as his form began to dissolve, the power of the shadows fading away. With a final furious glare, he vanished, leaving only silence in his wake. The chamber was suddenly still, the dark magic gone. The air felt lighter, and the oppressive weight of the shadows was lifted. The artifact in Lyra's hand dimmed, its power spent, but she knew they had succeeded. "We did it," Erindor said, his voice filled with relief. Lyra nodded, her heart still pounding. "Elandor is free." They left the tower, the sun shining brightly as they emerged into the city. The City of Shadows was no more, its dark magic gone, and the land around it was beginning to heal. The shadows were receding, and the sky was clearing, the sun's light banishing the darkness that had plagued the land for so long. As they stood on the steps of the tower, looking out over the land, Lyra felt a sense of peace wash over her. The artifact was quiet in her hand, its power spent, but it had fulfilled its purpose. The shadows were gone, and Elendor was safe. But Lyra knew that their journey was not yet over. There were still challenges ahead, still battles to be fought. But for now, they could rest, knowing that they had won a great victory. And as the sun set over the horizon, casting a warm glow over the land, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn knew that they would face whatever came next, with strength, courage, and the unbreakable bond of friendship that had carried them through the darkest of times. As dawn's light began to filter through the dense canopy of the Eldorian forest, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn stood before the entrance of the ancient city. The great archway, draped in vines and moss, whispered secrets of a forgotten age. Eldoria, the fabled city of sages and seers, lay shrouded in both wonder and mystery. Lyra took a deep breath, feeling a mix of awe and apprehension. The legends of Eldoria were known to her since childhood, tales of a city where magic was said to flow like a river and wisdom was inscribed in every stone. She turned to Erindor and Thorn, both of whom seemed equally captivated. "This is it," Erindor said softly, his eyes scanning the intricate carvings on the archway. "Eldoria's grandeur is even more magnificent than the legends describe." Thorn, ever vigilant, kept his hand close to his sword. "Let us hope that the grandeur of Eldoria brings us the answers we seek," he said. The trio stepped through the archway and into a world that seemed frozen in time. Eldoria was a blend of nature and architecture, colossal trees intertwined with majestic stone buildings, their spires reaching towards the heavens. The air was filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the distant murmur of flowing water. The city was quiet, as if holding its breath. As they ventured deeper into Eldoria, they encountered the first of its inhabitants, ethereal beings known as the Eldorians. These spectral figures were guardians of the city, their forms shifting between solid and translucent. They greeted the trio with a silent nod, their eyes reflecting an ancient knowledge. A tall Eldorian, with flowing robes and a staff that glowed softly, approached them. "Welcome to Eldoria, seekers of wisdom." The being's voice resonated in their minds, rather than their ears. "I am Alaric, the keeper of the archives. What brings you to our sacred city?" Lyra stepped forward, her voice steady despite the awe she felt. "We seek the knowledge of Eldoria to aid us in our quest to defeat the Shadow Lord. We need to find the 3 artifacts that are said to hold the power to vanquish him." Alaric's gaze was piercing, and for a moment it seemed as though he was peering into their very souls. "The Shadow Lord's rise has cast a shadow over many realms. The artifacts you seek are indeed powerful, but their locations are concealed by layers of enchantments and trials. Only those who prove themselves worthy may uncover them." Erindor's brow furrowed in thought. "What must we do to prove ourselves worthy?" Alaric raised his staff, and a shimmering portal appeared behind him. "To find the artifacts, you must first undertake 3 trials. Each trial is designed to test your courage, wisdom, and heart. Succeed, and the path to the artifacts will be revealed. Fail, and Eldoria shall remain a mystery." Thorn stepped forward, his expression resolute. "We are ready. Tell us of these trials." "The first trial," Alaric began, "is the trial of courage. You must venture into the heart of shadows, a cavern deep within the forest, where your deepest fears will come to life. Overcome them, and you will earn the right to proceed." Lyra felt a shiver run down her spine. The heart of shadows sounded ominous, but she steeled herself. "We accept the challenge." Alaric nodded. "Very well. Follow the path through the forest, and it will lead you to the cavern. But beware, for the shadows are not merely illusions. They are the embodiments of your fears. Conquer them, and you will find the first key to your quest." With that, Alaric faded into the mist, leaving the trio to face their first trial. They turned and followed the path that Alaric had indicated, their hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. As they walked, the forest seemed to grow darker, the trees closing in around them. The trail led them deeper into the heart of the woods, where the air grew colder and the silence more profound. It was as if the forest itself was holding its breath, waiting for them to confront the fears that lay ahead. Finally, they arrived at the entrance to the Heart of Shadows, a gaping maw in the side of a mountain draped in dark vines. The entrance was foreboding, the darkness within almost palpable. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn exchanged determined glances before stepping into the cavern. The darkness enveloped them instantly, and they could see nothing but the faint glimmer of their torches. The path ahead twisted and turned, and the deeper they ventured, the more intense the oppressive darkness became. The air was thick with an unsettling silence, broken only by the distant echoes of their footsteps. As they moved forward, the cavern began to shift and change. Illusions of their deepest fears materialized before them. Lyra saw visions of her past failures, haunting reminders of moments when she felt helpless. Erindor faced spectral enemies from his past battles, their menacing forms mocking him. Thorn saw glimpses of his loved ones in peril, their cries of distress echoing through the cavern. Each vision was more daunting than the last, designed to break their spirits and cause them to falter. But Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn pressed on, their resolve strengthening with each challenge. Lyra focused on her breathing, using her training to push through the emotional turmoil. Erindor fought off the illusions with his sword, dispelling the spectral enemies that threatened to overwhelm him. Thorn, driven by his desire to protect those he loved, refused to succumb to the fear of loss. As they continued through the cavern, they found themselves confronting their fears together. Their combined strength and support allowed them to face each challenge with unwavering determination. The darkness seemed to recede, revealing a shimmering pool at the heart of the cavern. In the center of the pool was a pedestal, holding a crystal, its surface glowing with a soft, ethereal light. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn approached the pedestal, their fears vanquished. The crystal was the symbol of their victory over the trial of courage. With the crystal in hand, they turned to leave the cavern, their spirits lifted by their success. The path ahead was still fraught with challenges, but they had proven themselves worthy of the next stage in their quest. As they emerged from the cavern, the forest seemed to welcome them back with renewed vitality. The trials had tested their resolve, but they had emerged stronger and more determined than ever. With the first key of their quest in hand, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn prepared to face the next trial, knowing that their journey was far from over. The trials of Eldoria had only just begun, and the path ahead promised both danger and discovery. The first light of dawn crept through the dense canopy of Eldoria's forest as Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn emerged from the heart of shadows. Their spirits were lifted by their success, but the weight of the journey ahead was ever present. The crystal from the cavern glowed softly, a constant reminder of their victory in the trial of courage. As they made their way back to the city, the Eldorian inhabitants greeted them with silent nods, their expressions reflecting a mixture of respect and anticipation. The city seemed to have come alive with a renewed energy, as if acknowledging the trio's progress. When they reached the center of Eldoria, Alaric, the keeper of the archives, awaited them. His presence was both commanding and serene, a perfect embodiment of the wisdom the city represented. "You have completed the trial of courage," Alaric said, his voice resonating within their minds. "Now, you must prepare yourselves for the trial of wisdom. This trial will challenge not only your intellect, but also your ability to discern truth from deception. Are you ready?" Lyra nodded, her determination unwavering. "We are ready." Alaric raised his staff, and the crystal from the heart of shadows began to pulse with a gentle light. "The trial of wisdom takes place in the labyrinth of illusions," he explained. "This labyrinth is a place where reality and illusion intertwine. To succeed, you must solve the puzzles within and uncover the truth hidden beneath layers of deception." With a wave of his staff, Alaric conjured an image of the labyrinth of illusion. The labyrinth appeared as a vast, intricate maze with twisting corridors and shifting walls. At its center lay a glowing orb, the key to passing the trial. "The labyrinth is ever-changing," Alaric continued. "You will face illusions designed to mislead you. Trust your instincts and work together to find the truth. Only then will you obtain the second key of your quest." The trio prepared to enter the labyrinth, their minds focused and their hearts steady. Alaric's final words resonated in their minds as they stepped through a shimmering portal that materialized before them. As they emerged into the labyrinth of illusions, The environment around them seemed surreal. The walls of the labyrinth shimmered and shifted, creating a constantly changing landscape. The air was thick with an eerie silence, occasionally broken by the distant echo of their footsteps. "This place is unnerving," Thorn said, his voice low. "We must stay alert and rely on each other." Lyra nodded, taking a deep breath. "Let's stick together and follow any clues we find. Remember, our goal is to find the orb at the center of the labyrinth." The trio began their journey through the labyrinth, their path illuminated by the soft glow of the crystal. As they ventured deeper, they encountered a series of challenges designed to test their wisdom and problem-solving skills. The first challenge appeared as a series of intricate symbols etched into the walls. The symbols seemed to shift and change as they approached, creating a puzzle that required careful observation and interpretation. Erindor stepped forward, studying the symbols closely. "These symbols might represent a code or pattern. We need to decipher them to proceed." Lyra and Thorn examined the symbols alongside Erindor, working together to identify any patterns or clues. After several minutes of intense focus, they managed to decode the symbols and reveal a hidden passageway. The passage led them to a chamber filled with mirrors. The reflections in the mirrors were distorted and misleading, creating a maze of false paths. The true path was hidden among the illusions, and finding it required keen observation and insight. Lyra noticed a subtle difference in the reflections of one mirror. "Look here," she said, pointing to a mirror that seemed to show a faint, shimmering path. "I think this is the way." They followed the path revealed by the mirror, navigating through the maze with careful precision. The reflections continued to shift and distort, but they remained focused on the faint glow that guided their way. As they progressed, they encountered a series of riddles, each one presenting a challenge that required both wisdom and creativity to solve. The riddles were designed to test their ability to think critically and discern truth from illusion. Lyra, Erindor and Thorn worked together, their combined intellect and experience enabling them to solve each riddle. With each solution, the labyrinth seemed to shift and change, gradually revealing the path to the center. Finally, they reached the heart of the labyrinth, a grand chamber illuminated by the soft glow of the orb. The orb floated in the center of the chamber, radiating a warm, inviting light. Lyra approached the orb, her heart pounding with a mixture of relief and anticipation. "We've made it," she said, her voice filled with awe. As she reached out to take the orb, a series of illusions flickered around them, testing their final resolve. The illusions presented them with false choices and deceptive visions, but their experience in navigating the labyrinth allowed them to see through the deceptions. With a steady hand, Lyra grasped the orb, and the illusions dissipated. The orb's light intensified, and the path they had traveled through the labyrinth was illuminated with a soft golden glow. The trio had succeeded in the trial of wisdom. The orb was the symbol of their victory, representing their ability to see through deception and uncover the truth. As they made their way out of the labyrinth, the landscape around them began to shift once more. The walls of the labyrinth reformed, and the illusions faded, revealing a clear path back to the city of Eldoria. Emerging from the labyrinth, they were greeted by Alaric, who awaited them with a knowing smile. "You have completed the trial of wisdom," he said. "The second key of your quest is now in your possession. You have proven yourselves worthy of the final trial." Lyra, Erindor and Thorn exchanged determined glances. They had faced and conquered the challenges of the labyrinth, but the journey was far from over. The final trial awaited them, and they were prepared to face it with unwavering resolve. The city of Eldoria was abuzz with the news of Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn's triumph in the labyrinth of illusions. As they approached the city centre, their arrival was met with a chorus of cheers and applause from the citizens who had gathered to witness their progress. The trials they had undertaken had not only tested their skills, but also elevated their status among the people of Eldoria. Alaric, the keeper of the archives, greeted them with a mixture of pride and anticipation. "You have done well," he said, his voice resonating with a sense of finality. "But the greatest challenge remains. The trial of harmony will test not only your individual strengths, but also your ability to work together in perfect unity. Are you ready to face this final challenge?" Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn nodded in unison, their resolve unshaken. "We are ready," Lyra affirmed. Alaric raised his staff, and a shimmering portal materialized before them. The trial of harmony takes place in the Grove of Resonance. This sacred grove is a place where the forces of nature and spirit are intertwined. To succeed, you must achieve perfect harmony with each other and the environment. Only then will you unlock the final key. With a wave of his staff, Alaric opened the portal, revealing the entrance to the Grove of Resonance. The portal's light was soft and inviting, contrasting with the intense energy of the previous trial. Stepping through the portal, the trio found themselves in a breathtakingly beautiful grove, surrounded by ancient trees, glowing flora, and a gentle, melodious hum that seemed to emanate from the very air. The Grove of Resonance was a place of ethereal beauty, with bioluminescent plants casting a soft, calming light. The air was filled with the soothing sounds of nature, rustling leaves, distant waterfalls, and the harmonious calls of mystical creatures. It was a place of peace and balance, designed to test their ability to attune themselves to the natural rhythms of the world. As they ventured deeper into the grove, they encountered a series of challenges that required them to work in perfect harmony with each other and their surroundings. The first challenge involved a series of musical patterns created by the grove's flora. Each plant emitted a unique tone, and the trio had to decipher the correct sequence to unlock a hidden passageway. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn listened carefully to the musical patterns, their ears attuned to the subtle variations in tone. They quickly realized that the sequence was not random, but followed a specific rhythm that corresponded to the natural cycles of the grove. By harmonizing their efforts and working together, they successfully deciphered the sequence and opened the passageway. The passage led them to a serene clearing where a massive ancient tree stood at the center. The tree's trunk was adorned with glowing runes that pulsed in time with the grove's harmonious hum. At the base of the tree was a series of interconnected stones, each engraved with symbols that seemed to resonate with the natural energy of the grove. The second challenge required them to synchronize their movements with the pulsating energy of the runes. Each stone represented a different aspect of harmony, balance, unity, and cooperation. They had to step on the stones in the correct order, aligning their movements with the rhythms of the runes. As they worked together to solve this challenge, they discovered that their success depended on their ability to communicate and coordinate their actions. Lyra's intuition, Erindor's precision, and Thorn's strength complemented each other, allowing them to achieve the perfect synchronization required. With each successful step, the runes on the tree's trunk glowed brighter, and the grove's harmonious hum grew more intense. The ancient tree's branches swayed gently, as if acknowledging their progress. When they completed the sequence, the tree's runes illuminated the entire grove with a warm, golden light. The final challenge of the Trial of Harmony was a test of their ability to connect with the spirits of the grove. The spirits appeared as ethereal beings, their forms shifting and blending with the natural surroundings. They communicated through a series of gestures and melodies, guiding the trio to a central altar where they were to perform a ritual of unity. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn approached the altar, their hearts open and their minds focused. The spirits' melodies resonated with their own inner rhythms, and they began to perform the ritual with a sense of grace and purpose. Their movements were fluid and harmonious, reflecting their deep connection with each other and the environment. As they completed the ritual, the spirits surrounded them with a radiant aura of light. The grove's energy surged, and the central altar revealed the final key, a beautifully crafted crystal, glowing with an inner light that seemed to embody the essence of harmony. Lyra reached out and took the crystal, feeling its warmth and energy flow through her. The trial of harmony was complete, and the final key was now in their possession. The trio had successfully navigated the challenges of the grove, proving their ability to achieve perfect unity and balance. As they made their way back to the city of Eldoria, the grove's beauty lingered in their memories. The trials had tested their courage, wisdom, and harmony, and they had emerged stronger and more connected than ever. Alaric awaited them at the city centre, his expression one of deep respect. "You have completed the trial of harmony," he said. "The final key of your quest is now yours. You have proven yourselves worthy of the ultimate challenge." Lyra, Erindor and Thorn stood together, their hearts filled with a sense of accomplishment. The journey had been long and arduous, but they had succeeded in their quest. The final trial awaited them, and they were prepared to face it with unwavering determination. With the final key in their possession, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn prepared for their journey to the Lost Kingdom, a fabled land shrouded in mystery and legend. The key, an exquisitely crafted crystal, was said to unlock the gateway to this ancient realm, where untold secrets and powerful artifacts awaited. As they set out from Eldoria, the trio could feel the weight of their mission pressing upon them. The path to the Lost Kingdom was rumoured to be fraught with peril, and only those who had proven their worth in the trials could hope to succeed. Their journey began through the verdant fields that bordered Eldoria. The landscape was picturesque, with rolling hills and blooming meadows stretching as far as the eye could see. Yet, the serenity of their surroundings belied the gravity of their quest. The map they had been given by Alaric was cryptic, showing a series of landmarks and symbols that had to be deciphered to find the entrance to the Lost Kingdom. The first marker on the map was an ancient stone archway known as the Gate of Echoes, situated in the depths of the Whispering Woods. The Whispering Woods was a vast forest known for its labyrinthine paths and mystical aura. Legends spoke of the forest as a living entity that could shift and change its pathways to protect the secrets hidden within. Navigating through it required more than just skill. It demanded intuition and an understanding of the forest's whispers. Lyra, Erindor and Thorn entered the Whispering Woods with a sense of both excitement and trepidation. The forest was alive with the sounds of rustling leaves and distant bird calls, and the air was thick with enchantment. The trees seemed to lean in, their branches intertwining to create a dense canopy overhead. As they ventured deeper into the forest, they noticed the subtle changes in their surroundings. The trees grew taller and more ancient, their bark etched with intricate patterns that seemed to shift and change in the dim light. The whispers of the forest grew louder, forming a symphony of voices that seemed to beckon them forward. Using the map as their guide, they followed the path marked by ancient runes and symbols. The forest tested their resolve with shifting pathways and deceptive illusions. At times, it seemed as though the trees were closing in on them, but they relied on their instincts and the clues provided by the map to stay on course. After hours of navigating the labyrinthine forest, they finally arrived at the Gate of Echoes. The ancient stone archway was covered in moss and vines, its surface engraved with symbols that glowed faintly in the twilight. The archway stood as a sentinel, guarding the entrance to the next phase of their journey. Lyra stepped forward and held up the crystal key. As she approached the archway, the symbols on its surface began to shimmer, reacting to the presence of the key. The gate responded to the key's magic, and a soft resonant hum filled the air. With a gentle click, the gate began to open, revealing a hidden passageway that led into the heart of the forest. The passage was lined with ancient carvings and glowing runes that illuminated their path with a soft, ethereal light. As they made their way through the passageway, they felt a sense of awe and anticipation. The journey through the Whispering Woods had been challenging, but they had proven their worth. The passageway led them to a hidden valley, where the entrance to the Lost Kingdom awaited. The valley was a breathtaking sight, with lush greenery and crystal-clear streams flowing through it. At the center of the valley stood a grand ancient gate adorned with intricate carvings and glowing symbols. The gate was flanked by towering statues of mythical creatures, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn approached the gate, their hearts pounding with excitement. The final key, now glowing with an intense light, was the key to unlocking this majestic entrance. They knew that their journey was far from over, but the sight of the Lost Kingdom's gate filled them with renewed determination. With the key in hand, they stepped forward to unlock the gate. As the key turned in the lock, the gate creaked open, revealing the entrance to the Lost Kingdom. The air was filled with a sense of ancient magic and mystery, and they could feel the weight of history and legend pressing upon them. The moment the gate was fully opened, a wave of energy surged through the valley, and the entrance to the Lost Kingdom was revealed. Beyond the gate lay a realm of forgotten grandeur, its landscapes bathed in a golden light that seemed to pulse with the heartbeat of the world. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn stood at the threshold, their eyes filled with wonder and anticipation. The Lost Kingdom was now within their grasp, and they were ready to uncover its secrets and fulfill their destiny. As the grand gate to the Lost Kingdom creaked open, a wave of ancient magic and unspoken promise swept through the valley. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn stepped through the threshold, their senses immediately overwhelmed by the splendor and mystery of the realm that lay before them. The Lost Kingdom, a land of legend, was a place of breathtaking beauty and grandiosity. Vast landscapes stretched out before them, each more majestic than the last. Enormous, ancient trees with leaves that shimmered in hues of gold and silver lined the horizon, while crystal-clear rivers wound their way through lush meadows adorned with vibrant, otherworldly flowers. The sky above was an ever-changing tapestry of color, shifting from serene blues to fiery oranges as the sun dipped towards the horizon. The trio walked cautiously into the heart of the Lost Kingdom, their footsteps echoing softly in the serene environment. The air was thick with enchantment, and the very ground seemed to hum with a deep, resonant energy. The landscape was dotted with remnants of a bygone era, ruins of towering structures and intricate statues that hinted at the grandeur of the kingdom's past. As they ventured further into the realm, they came upon a majestic palace, its spires reaching towards the heavens. The palace was a marvel of ancient architecture, its walls adorned with intricate carvings and shimmering gemstones that reflected the light in dazzling patterns. It was clear that this palace had once been the heart of the Lost Kingdom, and it now stood as a silent testament to its former glory. Guided by their map and the magical aura of the key, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn made their way to the palace entrance. The grand doors, adorned with ornate carvings of mythical creatures and symbols of power, stood ajar as if welcoming them into the heart of the kingdom. Inside, the palace was a labyrinth of corridors and grand halls, each more magnificent than the last. The walls were lined with tapestries depicting the kingdom's history, and the floors were covered in intricate mosaics that told stories of valor and magic. The air was filled with the faint scent of ancient incense, and the echoes of their footsteps reverberated through the vast chambers. In the central hall of the palace, they discovered a grand throne room. At its center stood a magnificent throne, carved from a single piece of crystal and adorned with gems that sparkled like stars. It was evident that this was the seat of power for the rulers of the Lost Kingdom. As they approached the throne, a low rumble resonated through the hall, and a hidden door in the back of the room slid open. Beyond the door lay a hidden chamber filled with ancient artifacts and scrolls. The chamber was bathed in a soft, golden light, and the air was thick with the scent of old parchment and magic. In the center of the chamber stood an ancient pedestal, upon which rested an ornate, gilded chest. The chest was intricately carved with symbols and runes, and it pulsed with a faint, magical glow. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn approached the chest with a mixture of awe and anticipation. With great care, Lyra opened the chest, revealing a collection of ancient scrolls and artifacts. Among them was a scroll that appeared to be the key to unlocking the full potential of the Lost Kingdom. The scroll was adorned with cryptic symbols and inscriptions, hinting at powerful magic and hidden knowledge. As they unrolled the scroll and examined its contents, a sense of profound understanding began to dawn upon them. The scroll detailed the history of the Lost Kingdom, its rise to power, and its eventual fall into obscurity. It spoke of a great magical artifact hidden within the kingdom, an artifact that held the power to shape reality itself. The scroll also revealed the location of this artifact, deep within the heart of the palace, hidden beneath the very foundation of the throne room. To access it, they would need to solve a series of ancient riddles and overcome powerful enchantments that protected the artifact from intruders. Determined to uncover the secrets of the Lost Kingdom and harness its power for the greater good, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn set to work deciphering the riddles and unraveling the enchantments. Each riddle was a challenge, testing their knowledge, wisdom, and courage. They worked tirelessly, their minds and spirits tested by the trials they faced. As they progressed through the riddles, they discovered hidden passages and chambers within the palace, each filled with its own mysteries and challenges. The palace seemed to come alive with magic, guiding and testing them as they drew closer to their goal. After days of relentless effort, they finally reached the chamber where the artifact was hidden. The chamber was a grand hall of shimmering light and ancient magic, with the artifact, a radiant crystal orb, resting upon an ornate pedestal. The orb pulsed with a powerful otherworldly energy, and its surface was etched with runes of immense power. With reverence and anticipation, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn approached the artifact. As they touched the orb, it responded to their presence, its light intensifying and filling the chamber with a warm golden glow. The power of the artifact was palpable, and they could feel its magic resonating with their own. The Lost Kingdom had revealed its greatest secret to them, and with the artifact in their possession, they were now on the brink of unlocking its full potential. The journey to this point had been fraught with challenges and trials, but their perseverance and determination had led them to this moment of triumph. With the artifact safely in hand, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn prepared to leave the Lost Kingdom and continue their quest. They knew that their journey was far from over, but they had gained invaluable knowledge and power that would aid them in the trials that lay ahead. As they made their way out of the palace and back to the valley, they reflected on the lessons they had learned and the challenges they had overcome. The Lost Kingdom had tested their resolve and rewarded their courage, and they were ready to face whatever lay ahead with renewed strength and determination. The journey back from the Lost Kingdom was one of reflection and quiet determination. As Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn travelled through the enchanted valley, the weight of their recent discovery settled upon them. The radiant crystal orb, now secured in a protective case, pulsed gently with a rhythmic glow, a constant reminder of the immense power it held. The landscape, once vibrant and full of wonder, now seemed to take on a more somber hue. The trio's thoughts were preoccupied with the artifact and its potential. The ancient scrolls and the knowledge they had gained from the Lost Kingdom were not just relics of a bygone era. They were keys to understanding and harnessing the power that could alter the very fabric of reality. As they reached the edge of the valley, the familiar site of their camp came into view. The comforting presence of their temporary home provided a moment of respite. However, the tranquility was short-lived as a sudden, ominous chill swept through the air, causing the trees to rustle and the sky to darken. Erindor, ever vigilant, sensed the shift in the atmosphere. "We are not alone," he murmured, his hand instinctively reaching for his staff. Lyra and Thorn exchanged concerned glances, their earlier sense of triumph now tempered by an unsettling unease. Without warning, a figure emerged from the shadows of the forest, cloaked in a robe of deep indigo. The figure's face was obscured by a hood, but an aura of authority and ancient wisdom surrounded them. The mysterious visitor approached with a deliberate and measured pace, their presence commanding attention. "Greetings, travelers," the figure spoke, their voice echoing with an otherworldly resonance. "I am Eldrin, Keeper of the Seals. I have been watching your progress with great interest." Lyra stepped forward, her curiosity piqued. "We have come from the Lost Kingdom, bearing the artifact of immense power. Who are you, and what brings you to us now?" Eldrin's hooded gaze seemed to pierce through the veil of darkness, their eyes glowing with a faint inner light. "The artifact you possess is a beacon of ancient magic. It holds the key to many forgotten realms and untold powers. However, it is also a source of great danger if wielded recklessly." Thorn, ever the skeptic, raised an eyebrow. "And why should we trust you? How do we know your intentions are pure?" Eldrin's expression remained inscrutable. "My purpose is to guide and protect those who seek to wield the power of the artifact for the greater good. The Lost Kingdom was but one chapter in a larger story, and the artifact's true potential can only be understood through the echoes of the past." Lyra glanced at Erindor and Thorn, who nodded in agreement. Despite their reservations, they knew that they could not ignore the guidance of someone who appeared to be deeply connected to the ancient lore surrounding their quest. "What must we do?" Lyra asked, her voice steady. "How do we ensure that we use the artifact wisely and avoid the dangers that you speak of?" Eldrin gestured towards the distant horizon, where the sun was setting in a blaze of crimson and gold. "There is much you must learn about the artifact and its origins. The echoes of the past hold the wisdom you seek, but they are scattered across different realms and guarded by powerful forces. The Keeper of the Seals produced an ancient tome from beneath their robe, its cover adorned with intricate symbols and runes. This book contains the knowledge you need. It will guide you to the realms where the echoes of the past are hidden. But beware, each realm holds its own challenges and tests. Only by overcoming them can you unlock the full potential of the artifact." With that, Eldrin handed the tome to Lyra, who accepted it with a sense of awe and responsibility. The book was heavy, its pages bound in a leather that seemed to pulse with ancient energy. As Eldrin began to fade into the shadows, their final words echoed through the twilight air. "Trust in your journey, and remember that the power of the artifact lies not only in its magic, but in the wisdom of those who wield it." With the tome in hand, and the guidance of Eldrin fresh in their minds, Lyra, Erindor and Thorn set about preparing for their next phase of the journey. The road ahead was uncertain, and the challenges they would face were formidable. But with the knowledge of the artifact's potential and the echoes of the past as their guide, they were ready to confront whatever lay ahead. The evening settled into night, and the campfire cast flickering shadows on the faces of the trio as they reviewed the ancient tome. The book's pages were filled with cryptic symbols and illustrations that seemed to come alive in the firelight. Lyra, her eyes scanning the text, began to decipher the clues within. It appears that the book is divided into sections, each corresponding to a different realm. The first realm we need to visit is described as a land of eternal twilight, where the echoes of lost legends can be found. Erindor studied the illustrations with interest. The realm of eternal twilight sounds like a place of both mystery and magic. We must be prepared for anything. Thorn, always practical, began organizing their supplies. "We should gather everything we need and ensure that we are well prepared for the journey. This will be no ordinary quest." As the night wore on, the trio made their preparations, their minds filled with anticipation and determination. The echoes of the past were calling them to a new adventure, and they were ready to answer that call. The dawn broke gently over the camp, casting a warm, golden light that promised a new beginning. Lyra, Erindor and Thorn were up before the sun, their preparations complete. With the ancient tome securely packed and their supplies in order, they set out on the path leading to their next destination. The journey towards the realm of eternal twilight was marked by a shift in the environment. The once familiar landscape gradually gave way to a more ethereal and otherworldly terrain. The trees began to take on strange twisted shapes, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. The sky above remained a muted grey, as if perpetually caught between day and night. As they walked, the trio encountered unusual flora and fauna. Luminescent flowers bloomed in hues of violet and blue, casting a soft, otherworldly glow. Strange creatures, with eyes like gleaming embers, skittered through the underbrush. The air was filled with a sense of enchantment and mystery, heightening their anticipation for what lay ahead. After several hours of travel, they arrived at the entrance to the realm of eternal twilight. It was marked by an enormous ancient archway, adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to shift and change as they approached. The carvings depicted scenes of legends and myth, their stories woven into the very fabric of the archway. Lyra stepped forward, her hand tracing the carvings. This archway must be the gateway to the realm. According to the tome, crossing it will transport us to the land where the echoes of lost legends reside. Erindor nodded in agreement. We must be cautious. The realm is known for its illusions and enchantments. It may not be as straightforward as it seems. Thorn, ever pragmatic, tightened the straps on his pack. Let's proceed with care. We don't know what challenges we might face. With a collective nod, they crossed the threshold of the archway. The world around them seemed to shift and blur as they passed through. When the sensations subsided, they found themselves in a land, bathed in perpetual twilight. The sky was a canvas of deep purples and pinks, with stars beginning to twinkle, even though it was not yet night. The landscape was both hauntingly beautiful and eerily silent. The ground was covered in a soft, shimmering mist, and the trees seemed to whisper secrets as the wind rustled through their leaves. In the distance, a towering structure emerged from the mist, a grand castle that appeared both ancient and majestic. The castle's spires reached towards the sky, their tops lost in the twilight haze. It was surrounded by a moat of shimmering water, which reflected the soft glow of the twilight sky. The scene was enchanting, but also unsettling. The quiet was almost oppressive, and the mist seemed to pulse with a life of its own. Lyra, Erindor and Thorn approached the castle cautiously, their senses alert to any signs of danger. As they neared the entrance, they found a large set of iron gates, adorned with symbols that matched those on the ancient tome. Erindor stepped forward, examining the gates. These symbols seemed to be a form of protection or a riddle. We'll need to decipher them to gain entry. Lyra pulled out the tome and compared the symbols on the gate with those in the book. There's a pattern here. It looks like we need to arrange the symbols in a specific order to unlock the gates. With careful consideration, they worked together to align the symbols. As they completed the sequence, a low rumble echoed through the air, and the gates slowly creaked open. The mist parted to reveal a path leading into the castle. As they entered, the grandeur of the castle became evident. The walls were lined with tapestries depicting ancient battles and heroic deeds. The floor was covered in a rich red carpet that led towards a grand hall. The atmosphere was heavy with history and magic. At the end of the hall stood a figure draped in dark robes, their face obscured by a hood. The figure's presence was commanding, and the air seemed to hum with a palpable energy. "Welcome, seekers of truth," the figure intoned, their voice resonating with authority. "I am the guardian of the echoes. You have entered the realm of eternal twilight, where the echoes of lost legends are preserved. To gain the knowledge you seek, you must prove your worth." Lyra stepped forward, her heart racing with a mix of excitement and apprehension. We seek to understand the artifact and its potential. What must we do to prove our worth? The guardian raised a hand, and a series of images appeared in the air, swirling like a magical display. They depicted scenes from ancient legends, each one more intricate and mysterious than the last. You must journey through the Hall of Echoes, the guardian explained. Each image represents a trial. To succeed, you must face and overcome the challenges presented in each trial. Only then will you gain access to the knowledge you seek. The trio exchanged determined looks. The trials were daunting, but their resolve was unwavering. They stepped forward, ready to face the trials and uncover the secrets hidden within the realm of eternal twilight. As they approached the first image, the air grew thick with anticipation. The trials ahead would test their strength, wisdom, and courage. But with the artifact's power and the echoes of the past guiding them, they were prepared to confront whatever lay in wait. The first trial awaited them in the vast Hall of Echoes, where the atmosphere shimmered with an eerie luminescence. The magical images that floated before them transformed into 3 distinct scenes, each presenting a unique challenge. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn stood at the threshold, steeling themselves for what was to come. The first image coalesced into a scene of a labyrinthine library, filled with towering bookshelves that reached towards a vaulted ceiling. In the center of the library stood a pedestal with a single book open, its pages blank. Surrounding the pedestal were ancient tomes and scrolls, each one exuding an aura of profound knowledge. A voice echoed through the library, seemingly emanating from the very walls. To pass this trial, you must uncover the truth hidden within the pages of the book. Only those who possess true wisdom will succeed. Lyra, with her deep understanding of lore and history, took the lead. She approached the pedestal and examined the empty book. Her eyes scanned the surrounding shelves, looking for clues. The titles of the books were cryptic, and the air was thick with the scent of old parchment. Erindor and Thorn watched as Lyra began to pull down volumes, flipping through their pages with focused intensity. Hours seemed to pass as Lyra deciphered riddles and solved complex puzzles embedded within the texts. Each discovery led her closer to understanding the book's significance. Finally, Lyra realized that the key was not in the book itself, but in the alignment of the ancient tomes around her. She carefully rearranged them according to a pattern she had deduced. The book on the pedestal began to glow with an inner light, and the pages filled with intricate symbols and arcane knowledge. The voice echoed once more, acknowledging her success. The second image shifted to a starkly different scene, a dark and foreboding cavern, illuminated only by the dim light of flickering torches. The cavern was filled with shadows and the distant sound of dripping water. In the center of the cavern stood a massive, intricately carved stone door, its surface adorned with menacing runes. As Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn approached the door, a low growl resonated from the darkness. The cavern seemed alive with hidden dangers. From the shadows emerged spectral figures, phantoms of past warriors, their faces twisted in eternal anguish. The voice from the cavern boomed, "To pass this trial, you must confront your deepest fears. Only those with true courage will prevail." Thorn stepped forward, his hands clenched into fists. His background in combat and strategic thinking prepared him for such a challenge. He led the way, engaging the spectral figures with unwavering resolve. Each phantom represented a different fear or doubt, but Thorn faced them head-on, his bravery undiminished. The cavern's oppressive atmosphere gradually lifted as Thorn, with the support of Lyra and Erindor, defeated the phantoms. Their courage and unity in the face of adversity allowed them to unlock the stone door, revealing the next trial. The third and final image transformed into a serene garden, bathed in a gentle, golden light. The garden was filled with vibrant flowers, but at its center lay a wounded creature, its cries of pain echoing through the air. The voice, now softer and more soothing, spoke. To pass this trial you must show true compassion, heal the wounded and restore balance to the garden. Lyra, with her natural empathy and healing abilities, took the lead once more. She approached the wounded creature, a majestic but injured phoenix. The bird's fiery feathers were dimmed, and its strength was waning. Using her knowledge of herbal remedies and magical healing, Lyra tended to the phoenix. She carefully applied healing salves and chanted ancient incantations. Erindor and Thorn assisted, gathering ingredients and offering their support. As Lyra worked, the garden seemed to respond positively. The flowers bloomed more vibrantly, and the air grew fresher. The phoenix's condition improved, and its flames reignited with renewed vigor. The voice, now filled with approval, signaled the end of the final trial. With the trials completed, the Hall of Echoes fell silent. The images that had guided them through the challenges began to fade, leaving only the grandeur of the castle's hall. The Guardian of the Echoes appeared once more, their presence radiating satisfaction. "You have proven your worth," the Guardian intoned. "You have demonstrated wisdom, courage, and compassion. The knowledge you seek is now within your reach." A hidden door within the hall slowly creaked open, revealing a chamber bathed in a soft golden light. Inside, an ancient artifact rested on a pedestal, a shimmering crystal orb pulsating with a warm inner glow. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn approached the artifact with reverence. The orb held the key to understanding the ancient powers and knowledge they had sought. As they reached out to touch it, the room filled with a sense of profound revelation. The crystal orb began to hum with energy, and the secrets of the realm unfolded before them. The echoes of lost legends and the history of the artifact became clear, offering insights that would shape their journey and the fate of their world. With their mission accomplished, the trio prepared to leave the realm of eternal twilight, their hearts filled with a mix of awe and anticipation. The journey had been arduous, but the rewards were beyond measure. They were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, armed with the newfound knowledge and the bond they had forged through their trials. With the ancient artifact now in their possession, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn stood at the edge of the realm of eternal twilight, gazing at the shimmering portal that would take them back to their homeland of Eldoria. The weight of their journey and the significance of their mission pressed upon them, yet they felt a sense of profound accomplishment. The crystal orb, which they had carefully secured, emitted a soft glow, its light reflecting their own inner resolve. It was a symbol of the knowledge and power they had gained, a beacon that would guide them in their quest to restore balance to Eldoria. As they stepped through the portal, the familiar sights of their world began to materialize before their eyes. The lush forests, rolling hills, and majestic mountains of Eldoria welcomed them back with open arms. The landscape, however, was not as they had left it. The once vibrant lands now appeared dimmed and weakened, as if reflecting the turmoil that had unfolded in their absence. Their return to Eldoria was met with both joy and concern. The people of Eldoria had been anxiously awaiting their hero's return, but the sight of their diminished realm filled them with dread. The once bustling streets were now eerily quiet, and the once gleaming city walls bore the marks of neglect and decay. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn made their way to the central palace, where the leaders of Eldoria awaited them. The palace, though still grand, showed signs of struggle. The leaders, Queen Alaris, the wise elven monarch, King Orin, the stalwart dwarven ruler, and Lady Selene, the enigmatic sorceress, stood together, their expressions a mixture of hope and worry. "Welcome back, brave souls," Queen Alaris said, her voice trembling with emotion. "We have feared the worst in your absence. What news do you bring?" Lyra stepped forward, holding up the crystal orb. "We have succeeded in our quest," she said, her voice steady. "We have recovered the ancient artifact and uncovered the knowledge that will help us restore Eldoria to its former glory." King Orin's eyes widened as he took in the sight of the artifact. "The artifact?" It is more beautiful than I had imagined. But what of the trials? What did you learn? Thorn took a deep breath, his gaze unwavering. The trials tested our wisdom, courage and compassion. We have learned much, and the knowledge we have gained will guide us in healing the land and its people. Lady Selena, who had been silently observing, stepped forward with a contemplative expression. The artifact holds great power, but its true potential lies in how we use it. We must act swiftly to address the challenges facing Eldoria. The heroes and the leaders of Eldoria gathered in the palace's grand hall to discuss their plan of action. The crystal orb was placed on a central pedestal, its light illuminating the room with a warm, reassuring glow. Erindor, with his strategic mind, outlined their approach. First, we must address the immediate threats to our land. We have seen the effects of the disruption, the weakening of our natural resources, and the rise of darkness. Our first priority should be to restore the land's vitality. Lyra nodded in agreement. We will need to use the artifact's power to heal the land. The knowledge we have gained will help us channel its energy effectively. We must also ensure that the people of Eldoria are prepared for the changes and challenges ahead. Lady Selena agreed. We must also be vigilant against any dark forces that may seek to exploit our weakened state. The trials have shown us that there are many dangers lurking in the shadows. We must remain united and strong. The leaders and heroes worked together to devise a plan for restoring Eldoria. They divided their efforts into several key areas. First plan is the restoration of the land. The crystal orb would be used to rejuvenate the natural resources and heal the damaged areas of Eldoria. Special rituals and enchantments would be performed to restore the land's vitality. The second one is to protection against darkness. The heroes would lead efforts to fortify Eldoria's defenses and combat any dark forces that threatened their realm. This would include gathering intelligence, training warriors, and reinforcing magical wards. The third was to healing and rebuilding. The focus would also be on aiding the people of Eldoria, providing medical care, rebuilding infrastructure, and ensuring that the population could recover from the trials they had endured. As the plan took shape, Lyra, Erindor and Thorn embarked on their respective missions, each playing a crucial role in restoring Eldoria. Lyra worked with Lady Selene to perform the rituals needed to heal the land. The once withered forests began to regain their lushness, and the rivers flowed with renewed vigor. Erindor, alongside King Orin and his dwarven warriors, fortified the city's defenses and engaged in strategic operations to counter any dark forces. The city's walls were reinforced, and patrols were increased to ensure that Eldoria remained safe. Thorn, with his tactical expertise, led efforts to rebuild infrastructure and support the people. He worked with local leaders to coordinate relief efforts and address the immediate needs of the population. As time passed, Eldoria began to show signs of recovery. The land, once bleak and diminished, started to flourish again. The people, though weary, found hope in the heroes' tireless efforts and the promise of a brighter future. The return of the heroes marked the beginning of a new chapter for Eldoria. A chapter filled with hope, resilience, and the promise of renewal. The trials they had faced and the knowledge they had gained would guide them in their quest to restore balance and protect their cherished realm. The crystal orb, now a symbol of their triumph, remained a constant reminder of their journey and the power they had harnessed. As Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn stood together on the balcony of the palace, overlooking the revitalized landscape of Eldoria, they knew that their adventure was far from over. With a renewed sense of purpose and unity, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing that their bond and the strength of their realm would see them through. As Eldoria began its path to recovery, an air of cautious optimism filled the realm. The land was healing, and the people were slowly returning to their daily lives. Yet beneath the surface of renewal, An ominous shadow began to stir. Whispers of unrest and dark forces brewing beyond their borders reached the ears of the heroes and the leaders of Eldoria. Lyra was studying the ancient texts recovered from their journey, hoping to uncover any additional knowledge that might aid their efforts. Her quarters were filled with scrolls and tomes, and the soft glow of candlelight cast flickering shadows on the walls. As she pored over the texts, a particular passage caught her attention. A prophecy of an impending threat that could plunge Eldoria into darkness once more. The prophecy spoke of a time when the balance of power would be disrupted, and a force of malevolent energy would rise to challenge the realm. It described a convergence of dark entities, a gathering storm that would test the resolve and strength of Eldoria's defenders. Lyra's heart sank as she realized the gravity of the situation. The dark forces they had previously encountered were not vanquished, but merely biding their time, waiting for the opportune moment to strike. The urgency of the situation prompted Lyra to call an emergency meeting with Erindor, Thorn, and the leaders of Eldoria. In the grand hall of the palace, the atmosphere was tense as the group gathered to discuss the disturbing revelations. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice," Lyra began, her voice steady but filled with concern. "I have uncovered a prophecy that speaks of a gathering storm, a force of darkness that threatens to undo the progress we have made." Queen Alarissa's expression grew serious. "We feared that the darkness might return, but we hoped it was merely a shadow of the past. What can we do to prepare?" Erindor, always pragmatic, spoke up. "We need to take immediate action. The prophecy suggests that the dark forces are gathering strength. We must fortify our defenses, gather intelligence on any emerging threats, and ensure that we are prepared for any eventuality." Lady Selina, who had been quietly observing, added, "We should also seek out any allies who might lend us support. The darkness we face could be more formidable than anything we have encountered before. Strength in numbers and knowledge will be crucial." King Orin nodded in agreement. "We will need to rally our forces and coordinate with neighboring realms. We cannot face this threat alone." With the gravity of the situation clear, the heroes set out on their respective missions to gather allies and bolster Eldoria's defenses. Lyra and Lady Selene travelled to the Elven realms, seeking the assistance of the Elven warriors and scholars. The Elven lands, though lush and beautiful, were also filled with a sense of foreboding as the news of the prophecy spread. Meanwhile, Erindor and Thorn journeyed to the dwarven strongholds, where they met with King Orin and his council to discuss strategies for fortifying the defences and preparing for potential assaults. The dwarves, known for their resilience and craftsmanship, began crafting new weapons and fortifications to strengthen Eldoria's defences. In the neighbouring realms, emissaries were sent to request support from allies who had once stood with Eldoria in times of need. These realms, each with its unique strengths and resources, were vital to the effort of preparing for the looming threat. As the days turned into weeks, Eldoria's preparations took shape. The palace and surrounding cities were fortified with new defences, and the Elven and Dwarven forces began training and coordinating their efforts with the Eldorian army. The sense of unity and purpose was palpable as the realm braced itself for the challenges ahead. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn reconvened with the leaders to report on their progress. The news was encouraging. Alliances had been strengthened, and resources were being mobilized. However, the darkness remained an ever-present threat, and the heroes knew that their vigilance was paramount. In the midst of the preparations, a new threat emerged. A mysterious figure cloaked in shadow, who seemed to be orchestrating the dark forces from behind the scenes. This figure, known only as the Shadow Master, was rumored to possess immense power and influence over the malevolent entities. The Shadow Master's presence was felt across the realm as reports of strange occurrences and unsettling phenomena began to surface. Dark creatures were sighted near the borders, and eerie disturbances plagued the once peaceful lands. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn decided to investigate these disturbances, hoping to uncover more about the Shadowmaster's plans and intentions. Their journey took them to the heart of the darkness, an ancient, forsaken ruin known as the Shadow's Den. The Shadow's Den was a place of desolation, where the air was thick with malevolent energy. As they explored the ruins, they discovered clues pointing to a grand scheme orchestrated by the Shadowmaster. It became clear that the Dark Forces were preparing for a large-scale assault on Eldoria, with the goal of plunging the realm into eternal darkness. Faced with the looming threat, the heroes and the leaders of Eldoria knew that their time was running out. The preparations and alliances they had worked so hard to build were crucial, but they needed to act swiftly and decisively. The heroes gathered once more to finalize their plans. They would launch a preemptive strike against the Shadowmaster's forces, aiming to disrupt their preparations and weaken their grip on the dark entities. As the sun set over Eldoria, casting long shadows over the land, the heroes prepared for the battle that lay ahead. Their resolve was unshakable, and their determination to protect their realm was stronger than ever. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine the fate of Eldoria, a battle between light and darkness, hope and despair. The heroes knew that the outcome of this struggle would shape the future of their world. With their allies by their side, and the knowledge they had gained from their journey, Lyra, Erindor and Thorn stood ready to face the gathering storm and defend their beloved realm against the encroaching darkness. As the looming threat of the Shadowmaster's forces grew ever more menacing, Eldoria's heroes and leaders understood that their preparations needed to be thorough and swift. The gathering storm was no longer a distant possibility. It was an imminent reality. Every corner of the realm was abuzz with activity as the final preparations for the coming conflict were put into place. In the heart of the dwarven stronghold, the forge roared with a renewed intensity. The dwarves worked tirelessly, hammering out weapons and armor imbued with ancient enchantments. Erindor and Thorn supervised the process, ensuring that every piece of equipment was crafted to withstand the dark forces they were about to face. We must ensure that every weapon and piece of armor is not only strong, but also imbued with protective enchantments, Erindor instructed the dwarven blacksmiths. The Shadowmaster's forces are unlike anything we have faced before. Thorn, inspecting a newly forged sword, nodded in agreement. These weapons need to be more than just tools of war. They must be symbols of our unity and strength. As the weapons and armor were completed, they were distributed among the soldiers and allies. Each piece was a testament to the unwavering determination of Eldoria's defenders. The realm was preparing for an epic confrontation, and the sense of purpose was palpable. Meanwhile, in the Elven realms, Lyra and Lady Selene worked with the Elven leaders to finalize their contribution to the upcoming battle. The elves, with their unparalleled archery skills and knowledge of nature magic, were key to the defense strategy. Lady Selene addressed a gathering of elven warriors and mages. Your skills and wisdom are crucial to our success. We face an unprecedented threat, and your abilities will play a significant role in turning the tide of this battle. The elven archers practiced their aim, shooting arrows with precision that could pierce even the toughest of armor. The mages prepared powerful spells designed to counteract the dark forces' malevolent magic. The elven forces were a beacon of hope and strength, their resolve as strong as the ancient trees of their homeland. As the final preparations were underway, representatives from allied realms arrived in Eldoria, bringing with them troops and resources. The combined forces gathered in a vast assembly, a formidable sight that showcased the unity and strength of their alliance. Queen Alaris and King Orin addressed the assembled troops. Today we stand united against a common enemy. Our strength lies not only in our individual abilities, but in our collective resolve. Together, we will face the darkness and protect our realm. The soldiers and warriors responded with cheers, their spirits lifted by the words of their leaders. The alliance was ready, and the stage was set for the confrontation with the Shadowmaster's forces. Lyra, Erindor and Thorn had been working diligently to gather intelligence on the Shadowmaster's plans. They had sent scouts and spies to gather information on the Dark Forces' movements and strategies. The intelligence report they received was both alarming and enlightening. The report revealed that the Shadowmaster had amassed a vast army of dark creatures and was preparing for a large-scale assault on Eldoria. The attack was planned to occur during the next full moon, when the forces of darkness would be at their most powerful. The timing of their assault is no coincidence, Lyra said as she reviewed the report. The full moon will amplify their dark magic. We must be prepared for a significant and coordinated attack. With the intelligence in hand, the heroes and leaders convened to strategize their defense. They mapped out key locations that would be targeted during the assault, and formulated plans to fortify these areas. The battle strategy focused on leveraging the strengths of their diverse forces, dwarven fortifications, elven archery, and Eldorian magic. Erindor laid out the tactical plan. We will establish defensive lines at key points around the realm. Our goal is to repel the initial assault and then push back against the dark forces. Thorn added, we must also ensure that we have contingencies in place for any breaches in our defenses. We cannot afford to be complacent. As the full moon approached, the final preparations were completed. The soldiers and allies took their positions, and the realm was on high alert. The sense of anticipation and determination was palpable as the defenders awaited the impending assault. In the quiet moments before the battle, Lyra and her companions took time to reflect on their journey. They had faced countless challenges and adversaries, and now they stood on the brink of a confrontation that would test their resolve like never before. Lyra stood on a hill overlooking the realm, the moonlight casting a serene glow over Eldoria. She thought about the people they were fighting to protect, the allies who had rallied to their cause, and the sacrifices that had been made. Erindor joined her, his presence a comforting reminder of their shared mission. We have come a long way, Lyra. No matter the outcome, we have fought with honor and courage. Lyra nodded, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Yes, we have. And we will face whatever comes with the same strength and determination. As the night deepened, the first signs of the impending battle began to stir. The defenders readied themselves for the fight of their lives, knowing that the outcome would determine the fate of Eldoria. The night before the battle was eerily quiet, a stark contrast to the bustling preparations of the days before. As the full moon cast its silvery light over Eldoria, the realm lay in uneasy anticipation. The calm before the storm was heavy with a mix of resolve and apprehension. Campfires dotted the landscape, their warm glow casting flickering shadows over the assembled troops and allies. Soldiers and warriors gathered around the fires, sharing stories and offering each other encouragement. The camaraderie was palpable, and the shared purpose of defending their realm united them. Lyra walked among the encampments, offering words of reassurance and comfort to those who needed it. She could sense the nervous energy in the air, but also the unwavering determination of those who had come together to face the impending darkness. In a quieter corner of the camp, Lyra, Erindor and Thorn gathered around a small fire. The crackling flames provided a small measure of warmth against the cool night air. We've prepared as best as we can, Erindor said, breaking the silence. No, we must trust in our plans and in each other. Thorn nodded in agreement. Tomorrow will be a day of great challenge. But remember, we are not alone. Our allies stand with us, and our combined strength is our greatest asset. Lyra took a deep breath, her thoughts turning to the upcoming battle. I can't help but think about what's at stake. Eldoria's future rests on our shoulders. Erindor placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. We have fought many battles and overcome countless challenges. We will face this one with the same courage and determination." As her friends continued their conversation, Lyra excused herself and walked to a secluded spot near the edge of the camp. She gazed out at the moonlit landscape, her thoughts drifting to her family, friends, and all that she had fought to protect. The full moon was a reminder of the power and significance of the night ahead. It held both the promise of hope and the potential for great peril. Lyra closed her eyes and focused on her breathing, trying to center herself for the trials to come. Back at the command tent, the final details of the battle plan were being reviewed. The leaders and strategists were making last-minute adjustments to their strategies, ensuring that everything was in place for the coming assault. Queen Alaris and King Orin, along with Lyra, Erindor and Thorn, discussed the final preparations. "We need to be ready for anything," Queen Alaris said. "The Shadow Master's forces are unpredictable, and we must be prepared for their every move." King Orin added, "Our scouts have reported increased activity among the enemy ranks. It is clear that the Shadow Master is preparing for a major offensive." Lyra nodded. "We must hold the line and protect the key positions. Our forces are ready, and our strategy is sound. We just need to stay vigilant and adapt to the situation as it unfolds." As the night wore on, the soldiers and allies made their final checks on their equipment and supplies. The tension was palpable, but there was also a sense of determination and readiness. Each person knew their role and was prepared to fulfill it. Lyra and her companions ensured that everything was in order. The defensive lines were fortified, and the magical wards were activated to provide additional protection against the dark forces. An unexpected visit. In the midst of the preparations, an unexpected visitor arrived at the camp. It was an old friend of Lyra's, a traveling bard named Arik. He had come to offer his support and share a message of encouragement. "I heard about the coming battle and couldn't stay away," Arik said, his voice filled with concern and determination. "I have come to lend my support and offer a song for courage." Lyra smiled, touched by the gesture. "Your presence is a welcome one, Arik. We could use a reminder of the hope and strength that our cause represents." Arik began to play a heartfelt melody on his lute, the music filling the night air with a sense of calm and inspiration. The soldiers gathered around, listening to the soothing notes that seemed to uplift their spirits and reinforce their resolve. The final hours. As the first light of dawn began to break, the camp was filled with a renewed sense of purpose. The soldiers and allies gathered for a final briefing and a moment of unity before the battle began. Lyra, standing alongside her companions, looked out at the assembled forces. "Today, we fight not just for ourselves but for everyone who depends on us. We will face this challenge together, with courage and determination." The leaders and soldiers exchanged nods of agreement, their spirits bolstered by the support of their allies and the sense of shared purpose. The battle was about to begin, and each person was prepared to give their all. As the sun rose over Eldoria, the stage was set for the confrontation with the Shadow Master's forces. The defenders stood ready, their hearts and minds focused on the battle ahead. The fate of their realm rested on their shoulders, and they were prepared to face whatever darkness lay before them. The first light of dawn spilled across the battlefield, casting a soft glow over the landscape. The air was thick with anticipation and tension as both sides prepared for the inevitable clash. The armies of Eldoria stood ready, their spirits high despite the gravity of the situation. The time for preparation had ended. Now it was time to face the unknown. As the sun climbed higher, the distant sounds of the approaching enemy forces became clearer. The rhythmic thud of marching boots, the clanging of armor, and the low murmur of an eager, restless army filled the air. Lyra, standing atop a small rise, surveyed the scene with a mixture of determination and apprehension. Erindor and Thorn joined her, their expressions reflecting the seriousness of the moment. Everything is set, Erindor said, his voice steady. Our forces are in position, and the magical wards are active. Thorn nodded in agreement. We have the advantage of surprise, but we must be ready for any unexpected maneuvers from the Shadow Master's forces. In the command tent, Queen Alaris and King Orin reviewed the final battle plans with their key commanders. The last-minute adjustments had been made, and the strategy was clear. The battle would hinge on holding key positions and effectively countering the enemy's advances. We need to be prepared for a fierce assault, Queen Alaris said, her tone resolute. The Shadow Master's forces will not hold back, and neither should we. King Orin added, Our scouts have reported that the enemy is approaching in 3 main waves. We must be ready to respond to each wave effectively and not let our guard down. As the hours passed, the first wave of the Shadow Master's forces came into view. Dark, menacing figures emerged from the shadows, their forms distorted and eerie. The enemy army, clad in dark armor and wielding sinister weapons, advanced with a grim determination. The defenders of Eldoria stood firm, their lines braced for the oncoming assault. Lyra, Erindor, Thorn, and their allies took their positions, their faces set with determination. The battle was about to begin, and each person was ready to play their part. The clash of armies was immediate and violent. The battlefield erupted into chaos as the two forces collided. The air was filled with the sounds of battle, the clang of swords, the roar of warriors, and the cries of both victory and pain. Lyra fought with a fierce intensity, her sword flashing in the sunlight as she defended her position. She moved with purpose, her every action guided by a deep sense of duty and resolve. Her training and experience were evident in her precise movements and strategic strikes. Erindor and Thorn were equally engaged, their skills complementing each other as they fought alongside their comrades. The battle was fierce, but the defenders of Eldoria held their ground, their unity and determination shining through. As the battle raged on, the first wave of the enemy forces began to falter. The defenders' coordinated efforts and strategic positioning paid off, and the Shadow Master's troops were pushed back. The lines of Eldoria held firm, and the initial surge of the enemy was repelled. Lyra and her companions took a brief respite, catching their breath and regrouping. The victory of the first wave was a significant achievement, but they knew that the next 2 waves would bring even greater challenges. In the midst of the battle, Lyra caught sight of a dark figure moving through the chaos. It was the Shadow Master, his presence imposing and malevolent. He moved with a supernatural grace, his eyes glowing with a dark light. The Shadow Master seemed to be directing his forces with a cold, calculating demeanor. His gaze met Lyra's for a brief moment, and she felt a chill run down her spine. The Shadow Master was a formidable opponent, and the true test of their resolve was yet to come. As the first wave was driven back, the second wave of the enemy forces began to advance. This wave was even more formidable, with larger and more heavily armed units. The battle intensified as the Shadow Master's forces pressed forward with renewed vigor. The defenders of Eldoria adjusted their strategy, reinforcing key positions and preparing for the increased pressure. The magical wards and defensive lines were put to the test as the second wave surged forward. The intensity of the battle took its toll on both sides. The defenders of Eldoria were pushed to their limits, their resolve tested by the relentless assault. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn fought with unwavering determination, but the sheer number of enemy forces was daunting. In a brief lull in the fighting, Lyra gathered with her companions to assess the situation. "We need to hold strong," she said, her voice steady despite the fatigue. "The second wave is tough, but we must not let up. Our allies are counting on us." Erindor nodded in agreement. "We've faced many challenges before. We can do this, but we must stay focused and adapt to the enemy's tactics." The battle continued to rage, with both sides locked in a fierce struggle. The clash of steel, the roar of warriors, and the surge of magical energies created a chaotic and exhilarating atmosphere. Lyra fought with a fierce intensity, her every move guided by a deep sense of purpose. She felt the weight of her responsibility, but also the strength of her allies' support. The fight for Eldoria was far from over, and the outcome would depend on their ability to withstand the onslaught. As the second wave began to recede, the Shadowmaster's forces regrouped for their final assault. Queen Alaris and King Orin, along with Lyra and her companions, formulated a new strategy to counter the impending attack. "We need to be ready for anything," Queen Alaris said, her expression resolute. "The Shadowmaster will not hold back. We must be prepared for his final push." King Orin added, "All forces are weary, but we must rally and push through. The fate of Eldoria rests on our shoulders." With the second wave driven back, the defenders of Eldoria prepared for the final assault. The remaining forces were reorganized and the strategic positions were reinforced. The final battle was imminent, and each person was ready to give their all. Lyra took a moment to reflect on the journey that had brought them to this point. The trials, the battles, and the sacrifices had all led to this decisive moment. She knew that the outcome of the battle would determine the future of Eldoria and the realm's very existence. The battlefield lay in a tense silence, broken only by the distant sounds of the Shadowmaster's forces regrouping. The defenders of Eldoria, though weary, stood resolute as they prepared for the final clash. The stakes had never been higher. The outcome of this battle would decide the fate of their realm. As the night settled over the battlefield, the defenders took a brief respite. The air was filled with the sounds of quiet conversations and the clinking of armor being adjusted. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn gathered with their closest allies to strategize for the final assault. "We've held them off well so far," Erindor said, his voice carrying the weight of experience. "But we must remain vigilant. The Shadowmaster will unleash his full force." Lyra nodded, her eyes scanning the battlefield. "We need to anticipate their moves and be prepared for any surprises. This final assault will test everything we've worked for." Thorn, ever the strategist, added, "Our forces are tired, but they are also determined. We must harness that determination and channel it into a final decisive push." In the darkened command tent of the Shadowmaster, the dark figure plotted his final moves. His eyes, glowing with an eerie light, reflected the gravity of the situation. The Shadowmaster was a master tactician, and his final assault was designed to break the will of Eldoria's defenders. "We have them on the ropes," the Shadowmaster said to his commanders. "Prepare the final wave. We will overwhelm them with sheer force and break their spirit." The Shadowmaster's forces were mobilized, and the Dark Army prepared for the last, most brutal assault. The air was thick with anticipation and fear as the enemy forces readied themselves for the final clash. As dawn approached, the final assault began. The ground trembled with the march of the Shadowmaster's forces, and the air crackled with dark energy. The defenders of Eldoria braced themselves for the onslaught, their lines fortified and their spirits steeled. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn took their positions, their faces set with grim determination. The final battle would test their resolve and their unity. They knew that this was their last stand, and they were prepared to fight with everything they had. The clash of armies was immediate and intense. The Shadowmaster's forces surged forward, their dark armor gleaming menacingly. The defenders of Eldoria fought with a fierce determination, their every action guided by a deep sense of purpose. The battle raged with unprecedented ferocity. The clash of steel and the roar of warriors filled the air, creating a chaotic and exhilarating atmosphere. The defenders fought valiantly, their efforts focused on holding key positions and repelling the enemy's advance. Lyra fought with a relentless intensity, her every move calculated and precise. She moved through the chaos with purpose, her sword flashing as she defended her position. Her training and experience were evident in her strategic strikes and unyielding resolve. Erindor and Thorn fought alongside their comrades, their skills complementing each other in the heat of battle. They adapted quickly to the changing dynamics of the fight, their strategic prowess a crucial asset in the defense of Eldoria. As the battle continued, the Shadow Master himself took a more active role. He moved through the battlefield with a dark grace, his presence a palpable force of fear and intimidation. His eyes glowed with a malevolent light as he directed his forces and unleashed devastating magical attacks. The defenders of Eldoria faced a formidable challenge. The Shadow Master's power was immense, and his final assault was designed to break their will. But the unity and determination of Eldoria's forces remained unshaken. In the midst of the chaos, a turning point emerged. The defenders, though exhausted, rallied with renewed vigor. The strategic positioning and coordinated efforts of Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn began to pay off. The enemy's advance was slowed, and the tide of battle began to shift. Lyra and her companions fought with a fierce determination, their every action aimed at turning the battle in their favor. They pushed back against the Shadow Master's forces, their unity and resolve shining through the darkness. As the battle reached its climax, the Shadow Master's forces began to falter. The combined efforts of the defenders and the strategic brilliance of their leaders proved to be a formidable counter to the enemy's final assault. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn pressed forward with relentless determination. They confronted the Shadow Master directly, their combined efforts creating a powerful force against his dark power. The Shadow Master's malevolent presence began to wane as the defenders pressed their advantage. With a final decisive strike, the Shadow Master was defeated. His dark power dissipated, and his forces were thrown into disarray. The defenders of Eldoria emerged victorious, their battle won against overwhelming odds. As the dust settled, the battlefield lay in a solemn silence. The cost of victory was evident in the weary faces and the scars of battle. The defenders of Eldoria had triumphed, but the victory had come at a great price. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn surveyed the aftermath of the battle. The land was scarred, and the casualties were many. But the victory was a testament to the strength and resilience of Eldoria's defenders. In the days following the battle, the realm began the process of healing and rebuilding. The defenders of Eldoria were celebrated as heroes, and their bravery was remembered in songs and stories. The victory marked a new beginning for the realm, one filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn continued their roles as leaders, guiding the realm through the process of recovery and renewal. The bonds forged in battle remained strong, and the lessons learned would guide them in the years to come. The shadow of the past had been vanquished, and the dawn of a new era had arrived. Eldoria was on the path to healing, and its people looked forward to a future shaped by unity, courage, and hope. The sun rose over Eldoria, casting a warm golden light over the land that had been marked by the scars of battle. The realm, once darkened by the shadow of the Shadow Master, now stood in the light of a new dawn. The battle was over, and the time had come for Eldoria to heal and rebuild. In the days following the final battle, the realm of Eldoria embarked on a massive reconstruction effort. The once battered landscape was being slowly restored, with the sounds of rebuilding echoing through the land. The citizens, united by their shared victory and loss, worked tirelessly to repair the damage and rebuild their homes. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn took on pivotal roles in this effort. Their leadership, forged in the crucible of battle, guided the realm through the difficult process of recovery. They coordinated efforts to rebuild infrastructure, provide aid to those affected, and restore the sense of community that had been so deeply shaken. The victory over the Shadow Master had brought the people of Eldoria closer together. The bonds forged in battle and the shared experience of overcoming adversity created a deep sense of unity among the citizens. This newfound unity was reflected in the cooperative spirit that characterized the rebuilding efforts. The realm's leaders organized community gatherings and festivals to celebrate the victory and honor those who had fallen. These events served as both a tribute to the heroes of the battle and a reminder of the strength and resilience of the Eldorian people. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn became symbols of hope and courage. Their bravery and sacrifice were celebrated in songs, stories, and monuments erected throughout the realm. Their actions were remembered as a shining example of heroism and leadership, inspiring future generations to stand strong in the face of adversity. The tales of their deeds spread far and wide, becoming part of the cultural fabric of Eldoria. The hero's legacy was preserved in the annals of history, serving as a reminder of the power of unity and the enduring strength of the human spirit. As Eldoria moved forward, its leaders focused on creating a vision for a brighter future. The lessons learned from the battle were applied to the realm's governance and policies. Efforts were made to ensure that the realm was better prepared for future challenges, with a focus on strengthening defenses, promoting education, and fostering a sense of community. Lyra, Erindora, and Thorn worked together to establish new institutions and initiatives aimed at promoting prosperity and ensuring the well-being of all citizens. Their efforts were driven by a deep commitment to creating a better, more inclusive society. The battle with the Shadowmaster had left a mark on the realm's magical fabric. The once vibrant magic of Eldoria had been tainted by dark forces. The restoration of magic became a priority for the realm's leaders, and efforts were made to heal the magical wounds left by the conflict. Eldoria's magicians and scholars worked diligently to cleanse the land of dark magic and restore the natural flow of magic. Their efforts were successful, and the realm's magical energy began to return to its former brilliance. With the land healing and the magical energies restored, Eldoria entered a new era of peace and prosperity. The realm thrived as a center of culture, learning, and innovation. The lessons learned from the conflict with the Shadowmaster continued to shape the realm's development, guiding its people towards a future of hope and unity. Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn continued their roles as leaders, but they also took time to enjoy the peace they had fought so hard to achieve. They found solace in the beauty of their land and the happiness of their people. The future of Eldoria was bright, filled with promise and opportunity. The realm's recovery from the shadow of the Shadowmaster was a testament to the strength and resilience of its people. The challenges faced and overcome had forged a stronger, more united society. As the years passed, Eldoria continued to flourish. The realm became a beacon of hope and a symbol of the power of unity and courage. The heroes of the past were honored and remembered, and their legacy lived on in the hearts and minds of the people. In the twilight of their years, Lyra, Erindor, and Thorn looked back on their journey with pride. The battles fought, the sacrifices made, and the victories achieved had shaped the course of their lives and the destiny of Eldoria. They found fulfillment in the knowledge that their efforts had made a difference, and that the realm they had fought to protect was thriving. Their legacy was one of hope, courage, and unwavering dedication. As the sun set on their era, the people of Eldoria looked to the future with confidence. The realm had emerged from the darkness, stronger and more united than ever before. The lessons learned and the values upheld would continue to guide Eldoria into a future filled with promise and possibility. And so, with a sense of fulfillment and peace, the story of Eldoria's heroes came to a close, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire and uplift generations to come.